The word Askari simply means soldier or police, in a number of languages including Arabic, Turkish and Kaswahili. Colonial armies operating in Eastern, Central and Southern Africa apply the name to their rank and file African soldiers, regardless of the soldier's particular regional, linguistic or ethnical origins. The Askaris of the German Colonial Army, or the Kaiserliche Schutztruppe für Deutsches Afrika, or Schutztruppe, became widely known owing to their role in the Eastern African campaign of World War I, and under the command of von Lettow-Vorderweg. German officers first established a colonial army to suppress the Abbasturia rebellion against German colonial interests and commercial interests in East Africa from 1889 to 1900. The troops they recruited for this internal army came from the northeastern of Africa, from the Sudanese to the Nubian men, who had fought against the Mahdi in Sudan in 1880. The Portuguese East Africans of Zulu and Shangani men were recruited from around Inhambane and Eastern Africa. These Eastern Africans were recruited from around Swahili, Numawazi and Mahahiha, men who were drawn from around German East Africa, and included former retainers of the Deutsches Ostafrika-Reich des Staffe, or the German East Africa Company. The Germans paid their recruits very well, and also elevated them to respected positions and privileges. For these reasons, Schutztruppe Askaris had very few incentives or even reasons to even leave and look for work elsewhere, until the demise of the German colonial empire and their strength during World War I. In regards, they fared much better under the German colonial rule than the British and the KAR, the Belgians under Leopold I and then the Belgian Constitution, and the Portuguese especially in the surrounding colonies. Between 1890 and 1914, the Askaris of the German colonial army were primarily responsible for territorial conquest of German East Africa, as well as for day-to-day policing and administration of the colony. Their roles were to suppress any anti-colonial resistance, particularly during the Mau Mau Wars of 1905 to 1908, establish their reputation as ruthless agents of colonial violence, whose scorched earth policies and methods spelled disaster for many East African communities. Their officers trained them to operate in small formations with little oversight, and to maneuver with great speed and independence. The Stormtroopers of Africa before Stormtroopers. They were organized into 18 field companies of 150 to 200 Askari apiece, and each company had its own porter, contingents and medical doctors. By contrast, in 1914, the British KAR, the King's African Rifles, was organized into 3 battalions, which used a cumbersome and comparatively weak 8-company format that was more suited to confronting a European enemy than the Schutztruppe of Light Independence movement. The 4 battalions, the 2 KAR based in Nazi land, was disbanded in 1911, with many of its soldiers then crossing to German East Africa to join the Schutztruppe. The Askaris wore a standard uniform, of course khaki with either fez or field cap, and a typical military rank hierarchy structured in the organizational relationships with white German officers and NCOs at the top, for obvious reasons. This meant in effect that race played a defining role in the military hierarchy as well. Senior Askaris took on day-to-day leadership roles in small unit combat operations and conducted training for the rank and file, using the privilege they gained through their positions in the colonial administration and the resources they gathered through plunder and wages. Many of them built lives as local big men, the conies of 1914, assembling large households around them, many wives, and of course many goats and sheep, as they often required pieces of land and herds for their livestock, that they displayed their privilege and authority to those around them living under colonial rule, especially in German East Africa. When World War I began, the Schutztruppe under the command of Colonel, later General Paul von Lettow-Vorderweg, numbered some 1,000 Askaris, but recruitment drives pushed the numbers between 11,000 and 12,000 by late 1916. In the first half of the war, most Askaris were long-term members of the Schutztruppe or volunteers. The Germans scored some successes in battles against their allied opponents, most notably in Nindigo and Tanga in November 1914, but in the second half of the war, as wartime conditions in German East Africa worsened, the Schutztruppe increasingly failed to attract new recruits, and began resorting to forcible conscription of able-bodied men on a large scale. As the Schutztruppe situation deteriorated and the army became confined to the southern half of the colony, with the Allies dominating the northern half, the following Battle of Mahawa in October 1917, where both sides suffered massive casualties, von Lettow-Vorwerk led his column across the border into Portuguese East Africa, when the Portuguese and the Germans were officially at war at this point. There, the Askaris and other column members lived off the land, seizing what they could from captured Portuguese forts along the way. Women and children and forcibly conscripted porters also accompanied the column as it marched through Portuguese East Africa, evading Allied capture for the rest of the war. In September 1918, his column re-entered German East Africa and then crossed into northern Rhodesia. Finally, after receiving the news of the armistice in Europe, the Schutztruppe surrendered at Abercorn, North Rhodesia, on the 25th of November 1918. Some 1,100 Askaris were presented at the formal surrender in northern Rhodesia. The Askaris of the Schutztruppe gained widespread notoriety for their fighting skills as well as their supposed dedication and loyalty to von Lettow-Vorbeck, and by extension the German Empire. The truth is more complicated. Most Askaris who remained to the end of the campaign were men who had been members of the Schutztruppe when the war began, and thus viewed it as the protector of their long-time interests. Thousands of others died in the war, became captives or deserted the army, often ending up in the ranks of the British Colonial Army in East Africa, the KAR. The British created 2 battalions of the KAR, 6 KAR, in order to make use of the captured ex-German Askaris. In an interesting twist, these Askaris may have included men who had joined the Schutztruppe following the disbandment of the 2nd KAR in Naziland in 1911. So they came full circle, right back to their original colonial masters. After the war, the Allies interned the remaining Schutztruppe Askaris in prisoner of war camps, where many have died from influenza. Following their release from detention, the British victors ordered them to return to their homes, offering no compensation or support. Many former German Askaris thus lived out their lives in relative poverty, although von Lettow-Vorbeck and sympathetic Germans and people in Germany worked steadily to secure back pay and pensions to the veterans of the Askaris. The Schutztruppe's Askaris were not the only African veterans of the war, whose exceptions for pensions or other kinds of compensation were dashed by the post-war colonial authorities, especially in South Africa, when the Allies took control or mandates of the German colonies. And an interesting twist yet again, African colonial soldiers of World War I bore more in common with veterans everywhere. The myth of the Schutztruppe Askari loyalty to the German cause and Germany lives on well into the latter part of the 20th century, despite a general lack of widespread interest in Germany's colonial past, and despite the terrible violence they perpetrated against the people of German East Africa. These aspects of the meaning of the word Askari have an afterlife for other contexts far removed from German East Africa. What I mean by this, in apartheid South Africa, the African National Congress members became informants, spies and other operatives for the Southern African government, who were called Askaris. Askari basically came to be known as the black man who is loyal to the white man, a direct reference to their willingness to work for the colonial powers to secure their own interests. In World War II, the Soviet prisoners of war were also recruited into the SS auxiliaries, and also earned the nickname of Askari for the roles they played in guarding the death camps of Belska, Saraborda, Treblinka, and in clearing the Warsaw Ghetto in 1943. But those are stories for another day, and pre-World War I behaviour and the post-war narrative of the loyal Askari and their actions generated well beyond 1918. Anyway guys, hope you enjoy, thanks for watching. Is it yet 30 minutes long? Yep. Round of applause, boys. Round of applause. We were at 20 minutes, but I don't know how we got here. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. Maybe it's the World War II part. The World War II part. So I was trying to say SS auxiliary, and now I say it perfectly fine. Well done, buddy. Well done, sick body. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something. Back at it again with no shoes on because I'm in my own house. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something. The Askaris. The people, the myth, the men, the legend, the loyal to the German cause to the very end, the Volkssturm of World War I, the Askari. I guess, Volkssturm is more of a home guard to the end, like the hit you leave, but anyway, those are stories and very disturbing topics and very controversial topics for another day. Anyway, hope you enjoyed, and hope you learned something yet again. Came full circle, that was the joke. Anyway, we have something special. Wednesday is Halloween night. And I, the man in my grandmother's bedroom, would like to say, what would you like for Halloween? Cringy Dracula voice from Romania, even though I know a authentic Romanian accent, but I will Americanize Dracula for now. Anyway guys, you can have a video of your choice that is very horrific, very paranormal, or very science fiction, but it has to have a horror element and not whimsical time-traveling stuff. We need dark, gruesome stuff. And my choice would be the Battle of Transylvania, if they have Tannenberg at least 64 players, which probably they don't. And of course, we can have World War I literature of horror like Bram Stoker's Dracula and other wartime, no wartime atrocities yet. No, we have a special season for those. But yes, either Transylvania, a video of your choice, or we can have literature of World War I. Of our choice, I guess. I would put out a few books, I guess, and we will choose Hunchyounga. We could do Hunchyounga and the what is Steel something, I cannot remember. 2,000-year-old brain full of crap. Anyway, yes, we can do Hunchyounga Storm of Steel. Yes, Storm of Steel. We'll not read the whole book because that may be copyright and it's 4 hours long and stuff like that. But anyway, hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something, and I hope you have a Halloween night. What am I doing with my life? I have no idea. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. Yeah, cringy. Anyway, yeah. Either the Battle of Transylvania, literature of World War I, maybe Storm of Steel if you like that. The book, not your Hunchyounga. Hunchyounga has his own episode, so we could do Hunchyounga or Bram Stoker's Dracula or even Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes, what the heck? Yeah, that's kind of whimsical, even though he has the face very dark and magical and or occult stuff. We could even do Aleister Crowley if you want. But he was just a spy in a supposed spy in World War I. Yeah, it's up to you guys and gals, so enjoy. If there's no votes, which obviously there won't be no votes, but I'm being optimistic and like 1 or 2 people would comment, yeah, probably a poll on Twitter as well, see how that goes. And yeah, but this is basically the outro, so yeah, I'm gonna call it quits here. Hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something. At the 40-minute mark, what a surprise. But anyway, learn something. Hope it's not too nasally, hope it's not too bad, but I'm trying to get back there. Gonna take some cough medicine. Might do the South Ladder 1906 next. Maybe, maybe not. 5-minute stops. Let's see. Learn something.